I'm here this afternoon with Chris Kurema. Well, I'm going to get your name wrong. Kurema?
Kurema, yeah.
Kurema? Close enough.
Yes.
Okay, good.
You did well.
Yes. You're a youth pastor
Yes.
at the Life Center
Yep.
in Abbotsford.
Abbotsford, yeah.
And let's start. Can we just start with you telling us a bit about your story?
Yeah.
What brought you to this church? How long you've been in youth ministry? You shared your story with me when we had coffee a couple days ago.
Yeah.
But just if you could share that with us for the video.
No, pleasure. I think I've been in youth ministry specifically maybe up to almost 5 years. Wow. But prior to that, I was always involved with young people. I was always involved with the young adults. Most of my work I did with young adults and adults. So youth ministry, I've done a little bit work in it. How I came to this church specifically, it was another story because one thing you have to remember is when you live on the other side, on the lower mainland, nobody who lives on that side desires to come to Abbotsford.
Okay.
Because Abbotsford, who wants to go there? It's almost like a Galilee or Nazareth. Is anything good that comes out of there?
So that's a fair question. I mean, I got all of my education here, so but I don't want to say that I'm a good thing that's come out of it. So I don't know. I don't know if anything good comes out of.
Well, I mean, since I've moved here, I kind of enjoy it now.
It's a good area.
There is less traffic in Abbotsford than it is in
gas is a touch cheaper.
Gas is
just
cheaper.
a touch cheaper.
My friends, when they come over, they're looking forward to get gas here.
That's
So
right. There you go.
So there's
right?
some good things.
So they come visit you. Yeah, that's
they come
great.
visit me, but they complain first. Oh, it's too far.
Yeah.
Anyways, how I came here. Let's go back to the story.
That's very good.
The pastor here, who goes here, Pastor Brian. Mm-hmm. He was my professor when I was doing my Bible college, and he was the professor of preaching class. So one of the memorable last days of the class is I remember looking at him, intently, young man, and I looked at him and said, "Hey, would you let me come preach at your church?" Because you're very insecure. You're preaching to him pretty much in a class, but you're fairly new. You're a student. So I was shocked by his response because he goes, "Yeah," and he didn't hesitate, and that really resonated with me as a young person.
Cool.
Which again. It's something that as we dive into, we can touch on, as well as young people. We look up to certain people, our pastors, people that are ahead of us, and when they give us those words of encouragement, they go a long ways. Anyways, I kind of forgot about him. We moved on. I graduated from college, and then it wasn't until a friend or someone who came to this church actually noticed that they had a posting, and the youth pastor was here had left, and they reached out to my wife, and from there we connected. I wasn't interested, especially when it came to, the church is in Abbotsford, so it was a throw off. At the time I lived in South Surrey, which is like 45 minutes away drive, of which actually when I took the job, I for almost a year I commuted to church 45 minutes, and my wife and my little boy was just born 2 or 3 months old. So that was a lot. But anyways, when I looked at it, I didn't want to do it. But when I saw that the senior pastor was my professor, it was almost as though it was a confirmation. It's like, hey, you should give it a try. And so that's how I ended up here in Abbotsford at the Life
Amazing.
Center. Yeah.
Amazing. And you've been here now like 5 years.
No, I've been here for 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, 3 years here at this church.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does the youth ministry, the youth work that you're doing here look like? So kind of what's a week of youth work look like for you?
Yeah. Usually, during the week, from Monday to about Wednesday, I'm preparing. I'm just putting together the activities. As you know, you're a youth pastor.
I get it. Yeah.
There's a lot of who's coming, what's happening, okay, what kind of games what kind of activities we are getting into today. And especially, you're always trying to find activities, games that are related to what you're talking about, what you're teaching. So, and then we usually meet on Thursday nights. That's our night. We meet for 2 hours. There's activities, there's a lesson, there's a little bit of worship, and discussion or word ways of empowering and encouraging them. Yeah.
2 hours on Thursday night.
On Thursday night.
When do you start?
We usually start around 6:30.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so
6:30 to 8:30.
6:30 to 8:30.
Yeah, and that works well here.
It works well here. Yeah, because I mean we're just thinking about people.
Yeah.
I mean parents coming from work.
Yeah.
And some youth might get a dinner a bit earlier and then be able to rush down here. But I do have some youth who have dinner after youth.
Oh, but they're hungry. They get hangry at youth nights. It gets a little intense.
No, I always make sure that I have snacks. You know.
Oh, clever guy.
You gotta get something.
Yeah, I don't do snacks in my youth group.
Oh, how's that going?
You can ask my youth. If they had any complaint about my youth group, it would be there's no snack.
Oh,
Like,
well, they can always come visit me. I'll give you snacks.
You're poaching my kids. Well, I mean, that's
Too bad it's too far.
if 45 minutes is too far. 10 hours to my house.
Hey, for snacks, maybe.
Maybe 10 hours is good for snacks. Yeah. There's occasionally snacks in our youth group. I have a pet peeve around entitlement with snack.
Definitely. I mean, some weeks I go without giving them any, right? So it just depends. But usually I'm trying to have something rewarding, something to just to pump them with sugar a little bit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sugar. And, food has an incredible bonding power amongst people. So, I mean, having food present in any way, in any form, even if it's, high in salt and saturated fat, still valuable in your youth gathering. So I have no problem with snack, except I don't want to run snacks. So my youth group doesn't currently have one.
It's not a problem. Don't start something you...
That's right. That's not what this trip is about. Anyways, I brought up the question of the 2 hours on a Thursday night because it's not really in line with the questions I had prepared to ask you. But it just kind of came to my mind as I wonder sometimes about the strategy that people use. And I'm always curious what works in certain places. Because when I was learning in youth ministry, we did evening, midweek programs. And there was always that concern of we don't want to go too late because the kids have school the next day, families and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And where I am now, when I arrived, they already had a youth night set aside, which was Friday nights.
Right. Okay.
And they did 2.5 hour long programs. Starts at like 7, so it's like a pretty late evening. Yeah. But it works there. It works in that community. Right. And I've kind of wondered. I wonder if that would work in a city setting because, like for us, there's also a 20-minute drive time to go anywhere. Right. Like I live close to my church, and that's a 10-minute drive. Right. Okay. And I'm close. Okay. Right. I'm like one of the closest people in the community to my church. Okay. Right. And I'm 10 minutes away. Yeah. Right. So, 7 exactly, actually. Oh, almost got it. So anyway, so I was curious like how that works well here. And, it's interesting. Some kids are eating early dinner and then they come, some wait and they eat afterwards. And that's just very interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, I do have some pastor friends who have their youth on Wednesday, or some actually have it on Friday. Yeah. So, I mean, when I started, I think the youth group was at 6 p.m., of which, again, when you come in fresh, you don't want to just come in and begin to change all the different things that were in place. But what I did is that I continued with the 6 o'clock. But then what I did is that I sent our survey to parents, pretty much asking, hey, is this time still good for you, right? So I got a consensus from parents, and we were able to shift it to 6:30. So it's really what works out.
And checking with your community is so important, right? Checking with your community, finding out what works for your parents. Yes. It's not just about prescribing a program and then everyone has to get on board.
No, it doesn't work like that, especially when you're dealing with the youth as well. I mean, you need the parents to buy into what you're doing.
They need to be on board.
They need to be on board if it's going to be a long-term commitment or something that you're hoping to build. And that community, again, right? It's not about me. It's not about what's convenient for Chris. But it's, okay, what works for the community? What works for this youth? How can we put something together that will get them out so that we can encourage them with the gospel? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. Okay. So let me just ask you the next question on there, which is, what's been some high points for you? What's been some high points in the past 3 years as you've been in ministry here? Share a story if you have one,
Sure. I think some of the highs, I'd say it's watching them come, see how, just like, I don't want to use it's not the word inexperienced or shy, or it's just like you have this little youth coming up. Because usually I get them from like, they come up from elementary, and when they join middle school, they join me, right? So you have these little ones that come up to you, and then just as you get to know them, as you're building together, all of a sudden, I mean, some of their highs is when I've watched them come, I've watched them not knowing a lot, to them actually being hyped and loving the Word of God, and then approaching me to get baptized. I mean, those has been some of my high points. I love baptism already. Just the idea behind it, people proclaiming, their faith in front of families and friends. But to watch someone that you pretty much mentor, decide, hey, I think I want to get baptized. Yeah. I desire to share. And that has been really my high point, to just watch them and how they have grown in their faith and commitment to Jesus.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you've had the opportunity and the incredible joy of baptizing some of the students who you've mentored up, right?
Yes.
That's such a cool experience.
Yes.
It's hard to express it. I almost got to give that experience to one of my youth leaders. And I was kind of hoping, actually, that those opportunities, I'm always looking for them. Yeah. Right? Like, I love the opportunity to baptize a youth that I've worked with and walked alongside. But I have a great team of volunteer leaders, and I am just so excited for when they get an opportunity to baptize a student that they've worked with in the youth ministry. Because often my leaders have a bigger impact than I do on individuals, right? And that's so important that we experience that whole journey of growth and discipleship together.
Yes, those one-on-one conversation, and you watch them. I mean, it's almost as proud, like it's as though I don't know how to put in words or express how it feels. Just to watch someone grow spiritually, there's something special about that. It's amazing. I think it's I feel like it is a calling of pastors and leaders really to be able to do that, disciple, and just train those train the young ones to come up and build them up in their faith. So
totally,
that has been really some of my highlights. I mean, I have some other, but that definitely has been the highest.
Top of the charts, eh?
Discipleship, leading all the way to baptism, and just still watching them growing and sharing their faith. So,
well, because baptism's not the end of the journey,
it's
right?
Not.
It's just that one more step, and then there's a whole more, a whole bunch more journey to follow, and we get to keep walking with them. It's incredible,
and that's the joy. The joy.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
Hey, so for your youth nights, this is a little out of left field on you, so feel free to just be like, Andrew, I don't have an answer for you on that. But I came to your church on Sunday. Yeah. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
We talked about that a bit before I turned the cameras on.
Yeah.
Loved it. Very multicultural and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is your youth group similar? Do you have a similar kind of atmosphere to it, that vibe? That do you bring in a lot of that multicultural, that various languages? Like, how, do you bring that to your youth nights as well, or
on the youth nights? There's a little bit, not too much. Okay. Because I think one of the I mean, maybe that's a good thing. I should probably incorporate that in the youth as well. On the Thursday nights, I always find it, because the youth mostly they either, because we take part of the Sunday service. Usually, I mean, on a Thursday, I'm like, okay, let me bring you to Canada. Enjoy just the Canadian part of the youth. But I mean, maybe I should encourage and do that a little bit. What I do, however, is that when I am on praying, because I speak other languages, what I do at times, I get them to pray in English and I translate for them, because a lot of them don't speak any other languages. Because most of them have grown up. So
youth primarily are speaking English because they've grown up in Canada. Yes. It's their parents who've immigrated, and they have the other languages.
Yes.
How many languages do you speak?
I speak about 4 languages.
You're incredible, man. That's crazy. Yeah. Okay, what languages? English, Swahili?
English, Swahili, French, Kinyarwanda.
Okay, what was the last one?
Kinyarwanda.
So where's that?
That's from Rwanda. So I don't know if you've...
Not really, but... I'm showing my ignorance here, but...
It's funny, 'cause a lot of people actually might not know the country Rwanda, but they know you've heard of the genocide on 1994, that's Rwanda.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the language Kinyarwanda.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
4 languages, incredible. And French. So, I mean, you're more Canadian than me because I don't speak French at all.
Well, yeah, I mean, I grew up in Congo. So, and Congo,
French
again,
is very,
French is very prominent there. And we learned French in school.
Yeah, so did I. But
so did my wife. And she doesn't speak.
I know, right? Like, is your wife Canadian? Like, she grew up in Canada?
She grew up in Canada.
Yeah. So she's got the same problem as I do, where
yes,
they tell us we're a bilingual country and then we only know English.
It's all the provinces and then Quebec.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. It's so weird. Anyways, we're not getting into that. That's not the focus of this conversation. But it is just a conversation. Right. I kind of wonder what it would look like to bring some of that degree. I love the idea of translating the prayers into another language. I actually really enjoyed the prayer time this week. Yeah. Where it was in English and French. And he did an excellent job. I thought it was an excellent. I couldn't translate the French very well. I caught a couple words that I did remember from school, but it was still really, really cool, and it was it was a very natural flow to the whole service with various languages. Yeah. So I'm very interested in how you would do that in a youth setting. Right?
Definitely. I mean, it would just have to be one thing at a time. I mean, one of the things that I could do is incorporate some of the songs. Because I mean that would be an easier starting point, because one, they already know the songs for most of them been coming to church and they sing it already upstairs. So that would be a starting point. And then because I mean the hard part of anything else, unless we do cultural things, maybe asking them to come and present. But one of the cool things we do at the church as well, on the last Sunday of the month, we used to do is present on different countries. So what we do, like my pastor, or he would ask somebody from that country. I don't know if you noticed the flags that are hanging. Yeah. So a lot of the flags, I mean, they represent the people that attend the church. So what ends up happening is that, it's like this Sunday we're going to talk about Trinidad. So we have somebody in the congregation from Trinidad. What they will do, they will share their stories in Trinidad, and then at the end they will share some of their prayer points. How can we pray for Trinidad, right? So something like that. So that could be something that I could bring to the youth and be like, hey, this is what's happening in Haiti. Give some facts about Haiti and some ways we can pray for Haiti. So bringing in
extending what's already here to all age groups, including the youth, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Anyways, that's a great area of just thought and exploration. So you do Thursday night is your regular youth program,
correct? But
Sunday morning, after the first half of the service, you also dismiss the youth and you go and join them and you do something there. So what do you do on Thursdays? What do you do on Sundays? Like, is there a difference? Is it like two youth programs?
Yeah, it is completely different. So I think Thursday it's more again activities, games, and a lesson, and usually I have two different things happening. So what we do actually within the church is that on Sunday, everything that is being taught upstairs is taught downstairs.
Okay.
So whatever, if like right now, typically we're in the book of Revelation.
I'm a little sad I didn't get to hear that. My favorite book to study. And you had a guest speaker this week. Yes. He was excellent, by the way, but I would have liked to have heard a Revelation sermon and just enjoyed that. But.
I mean, it's always fair if you have a guest speaker. You don't want to just throw them like, hey, you're coming to speak to our church and you want to continue in the series we're in right now. So,
and in a book that is debated a lot. Right. So it's like to throw a guest speaker, that's a bit cruel.
Yeah, right? You don't know where the pastor stands, and then
you don't know where they're going to go.
They're going to come in to speak on chapter 19, and you don't know what happened all throughout. You don't know what. It would just be a lot. But so what we'll do. So the book of Revelation upstairs, we do it downstairs, and the kids, the little ones as well, they do that.
So it's cohesive throughout the whole.
Cohesive, yeah. So that way we're encouraging as well for the young people when they're leaving church. When the parents ask them what they learned, they will talk about Revelation, and the parents already kind of know and have the idea of what's happening. And usually on Thursday, I have a different series of different things happening. Like I shared with you, the book I was doing mainly on the apologetic to give them some sort of built-up foundation for their faith, giving a reason for their faith. So Thursday I tend to do a little bit more hot topics, focus on a little bit or more subjects that they are interested in, and explore a little bit of that as well. And again, as we discussed, I love doing those open anonymous questions. Ask anything, ask the pastor anything kind of thing. Just
give
to
the youth a
them.
chance, right?
Yes.
Yeah, give the youth a chance to tell you what they're wanting to learn about, or to express the questions they're wrestling with. So you have a chance to now address those questions and help them wrestle with those things in a really effective way.
Yeah, because a lot of time, I mean, me and you know, when we are preparing, we are thinking about them, right?
Of course.
We're okay, what appeals to them? But on those nights, they're telling you exactly what they want to hear.
That's right.
What they're inquiring about, at least.
Yeah, so what it is that they are wanting to learn more about because they're not sure. And you're exactly right. Like when we're preparing, we're thinking about what we think they need to hear.
Correct.
What we think they're struggling with. And we're making, I think, educated guesses, especially if we're in their lives to some degree, and connecting with them well throughout the week if we can, or even just on our youth nights and just connecting well. Then we can be informed about what we think they're dealing with. But then when you get to go up there and go, okay, so what questions do you have? And you get hit with one, you're like, this is good that I opened this floor up because this is something I may not have talked about or whatever. Yeah. That's huge. That's huge. Yeah. Okay, so 3 years at this church. You've been in youth ministry a little longer than that, about 5 years, you said, and involved in adult and young adult ministries as well. You've got Bible school training. 3 years here. What has been the most surprising to you? What kind of things you're like, I think I can handle doing youth work, and then you got into it and you're like, I did not see that coming, you know?
I'd say, I think when I think of some of the hurdles, I think when I dealt a lot with adults, the young adults, you can straighten out things and share things straight out. But when it comes to working with the younger people, youth at least, the family involvement, again, it goes back to the community. That was one of the things that was like, oh man, it's almost like you have to go a few steps to get one thing back. Right. Because, I mean, that whole, I understand. I mean, the protection around it, and you know, they're essentially the church is protecting me because most of my communication goes straight to parents. I usually, if I'm sending a youth anything, the parent is CC'd on it, or they're connected to it, right? So I think one of the is like realizing, they're underage, they need the parent to consent for everything. So that was one of the thing. Other than that, I think I've been enjoying. Something that you don't get to, a lot of people don't get to witness a lot is the question, the curiosity. And I like it, but I've had people who have stepped in for me and then they were gladly happy when I came back. They're like, you can have your youth, because they ask way too much, or they're just caved in, like they won't ask or say anything. So that's the other thing. It's like sometimes depending on who it is, they might like,
we don't know them, so let me climb up.
So I think that I'd say then that was my beginning, because you have to win their trust.
Absolutely,
you have to literally. Young adults or you know, adults, they can put a front, they can share if they have to, and interact with you and get the conversation going. But with youth, it takes a little bit of time for them to warm up to you. Now imagine when I started here, it was right in the middle of COVID.
Oh man.
Okay, so that was the hardest
3 years
thing.
ago. Man.
And the funny thing is, I started, or my first encounter with my youth was on Zoom.
So the first time you met them and they met you.
They've never met me.
Yeah. And it's not even in person.
It's not in person.
Oh man.
It's on Zoom.
That's so hard.
Right. So now it was so hard, so different, right? Because it was like, hi, right? It was so awkward because it's like, I've never done a ministry on Zoom. Like,
no.
What do you do?
None of us had.
Yeah, right? So it was that was I think, very challenging. I think I had a year, my first year or so was all on Zoom.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's intense. So, talk about surprising, right?
Very, very.
I love the things that surprise you though. Like the surprise of someone who's worked with adult ministry suddenly going, right, I have to include parents in my thinking.
Yes.
I love that that's something that surprised you. And that is something that takes some getting used to, both for us as youth pastors, but also for the parents.
Right.
To get used to, another person communicating with me. And they've already got maybe teachers and schools and coaches and whatever else, all kind of bombarding them, plus their own lives with work and whatever else. And then we throw in, hey, youth pastor too, you know? And so there's a learning curve to that, I think. It can be a lot. But I also love this, that you are surprised by the curiosity of students, that you love it, and that others struggle with that. Like, those are great things to be surprised by.
Yeah, definitely.
It's so good.
Definitely.
It's so good. Okay. Oh yeah, great. So, I have this philosophy, this idea, still forming.
Yeah.
I think it's true. I think it's fair to say it as it's a true thing. That youth ministry is contextual. That it's going to be a bit unique in each location. You can't take the youth ministry and the work I'm doing in rural Alberta and transplant that to inner city Abbotsford and just expect it to work. Certain things would probably still work, but it takes on a shape of its own in the community and the context it's in. So here, from this context, from where you're at, what are some of the challenges that you think youth, and maybe we can extend it to families, are facing? Like what are youth facing as challenges in their lives, in the world, that stand out to you? Like what's there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have to give it a thought.
Sure.
But when I think, it's true that what you're saying, and I believe that we shouldn't just copy paste everything that you're doing here. So, because it's working here, it's gonna work here. I mean, it doesn't work in any other church, in any other context as well. I mean, you can't just take your Sunday sermon and go and preach it somewhere else. I've
done it.
And how did it go?
It was better in my church where I planned it for.
Right.
And I have a sermon, 3 sermons actually, that I preach anywhere I go. Yeah. And I'll preach them at camps. I preach them at my church, my youth group. I preach them in any church. Yeah. But they slightly change each time. Yes. Just slightly to fit the context, if necessary. Like, if I'm in a inner city Vancouver, I may not use a bunch of farming analogies like I would out in rural Alberta, where farming is part of the culture. Right. Yeah.
And I think some of the hardest, the conversation that are happening all around, it's not a secret. It's the whole identity issue concern.
Absolutely.
And that's something that has actually shocked me to know how much my youth are more exposed than I am.
Yes.
Because I think there was, it was a random question. Actually, I don't even remember what I was preaching on, or I was teaching them on something. And it just so happened that somebody just asked a question out of the blue. And they started explaining some of the things that they're going through or facing or witnessing in their schools and classrooms that I thought they were not happening and they were close by. But my youth had to process that. They had to go through it. And again, it's me almost just walking alongside them like, oh, then what do you do in these cases when this happened? Yeah. It is a touchy subject, as you know, all over and everywhere.
A number of youth pastors I've been meeting with, we've talked around the issues, right? Yes. Being careful to be sensitive and gentle.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's an important issue. The idea of identity.
Yes.
That's a tough one in our
culture that's
today.
A hard one, because I think it's not just even within the churches, without the church. Families, communities, everywhere. Especially, I'd say bigger cities have even more exposure. To all this identity crisis than maybe I believe. I don't know. Maybe not. You might want to educate me what's happening in your corner.
There's the same stuff present in rural Alberta, but our population density is smaller.
Right.
So if you consider percentages, right? So let's say you've got 1 in every 100 kids is dealing with a specific issue.
Right.
And I've only got 300 kids in my community.
Right.
So, I got more than that, I suppose, but 300 in the local high school. And so there's 300 kids-ish in the local high school. So if it's 1 in 100, then there's only 3 kids dealing with it. Right. So it looks like a smaller issue. Yeah. Then you come here and there's, 150,000 people in this city. And, that's a lot more people dealing with the issues. And 1 in 100 is not quite accurate at all, but you know what I mean? So the issue, the same challenges are there.
Right.
Around identity. Right. There is a lot of confusion around identity. to give some terminology to this discussion, maybe I'm just going to rant for a moment. The pursuit of identity, when we talk about this, sometimes people go immediately to, we're talking about LGBTQ.
Right.
And to some degree, that's part of it.
Yeah.
I want to be clear that that's not all of it.
That's a portion of it.
Yeah. What we're dealing with is an identity issue, which goes way beyond gender and sexuality. It goes so much bigger. Yeah. Because every person is seeking identity, which is to just figure out who they are.
Yes.
And they seek it through two questions, which is like, where do I belong? Who do I fit with? Who are my people?
Yeah.
And the other question of, how am I unique?
Right.
How am I useful?
Right.
How am I special in a sense? And we need both. And the hard thing is to be part of a group. Sometimes it feels like we lose our uniqueness. And so the tension of the fancy terms are autonomy and affinity.
Right.
The tension of these terms, of this concept of like, I need to belong, but I need to be unique, can really be incredibly difficult. And it starts in the teenage years where that tension begins to really tear a person apart. And they go, I don't know where I fit. I don't know how I'm special. I don't want to sacrifice either. So therefore, I don't know who I am. And so we have an identity crisis, and we will look for identity everywhere. And what's amazing about the Christian worldview, I think, is we have an answer to the question, where do you belong? Who do you fit with? Who are your people? Your people are the children of God. Your people is the Son of God who calls you out of this earthly pursuit of self to relationship with the divine being, right? And that's amazing. And how are you unique? Well, God has made you unique and called you specifically to his kingdom to be part of that. And so we have the answers to the uniqueness, to autonomy, and to affinity, which gives us an identity as a child of God. It's an incredible thing, but how we communicate that into a culture that is so desperate and is so lost and is so scared of what it would cost them to take on this identity as a Christian. And so that's our role, right? We come alongside with this gentle shepherding, exampling in our own life and practice what it looks like to live that way. So I went on a bit of a tangent. I didn't go on a tangent. I decided I would quickly sermonize this whole thing.
That's good.
But does that make sense? And I think are we in the same page here?
We are. It makes complete sense, because if you look, I mean, it gets even harder for the teens when you throw in social media. That just takes things to the next level, because now they're just watching all their friends doing all kinds of different things. Like, am I supposed to? Should I start doing it so that I could also belong, fit in? You know. So I think you're spot on. You're preaching. So
sorry, man. I got fired up. And social media adds a big wrinkle to it. And the way the algorithm works, right? So if you watch a few videos promoting one idea, the next time you go on your phone, you're going to get 100 more of those same videos, and you're going to start thinking, oh, this is really normal. You'll never see anything that contradicts it. Right. Like, I live in rural Alberta. And I was flipping through some videos one day on my phone, and all of a sudden I realized I just watched a ton of videos that were very pro-conservative, which that's fine. But I never got a video that promoted liberals or in any positive way. And I'm like, I'm getting fed one narrative, one set of perspectives. And that does not make me informed. Right. And I'm like, I have no issues with this. Isn't supposed to get political. I'm not going to go into my political views here. It's not about whether you're conservative or liberal. It's about whether or not you're getting informed. And the algorithms that we use in our social media aren't about getting us informed. No. It's about giving us what's going to keep us flicking through. But then youth who get caught in that bubble, they start to think, well, this is it, all that there is, because I've seen all the videos. I've
done my research.
You've seen all the videos. You've done your research on what you've been fed. And that's a scary thing.
And to add to that as well, I think that's one of the reasons why, personally, I'm really glad that you're doing this, which is promoting, I guess, the Word of God, or sharing some of our thoughts with the audience. Maybe, hopefully, more people will click on it and continue to watch more Christian things.
I have no idea.
Because
but it'll affect their algorithm.
Definitely, because the reason I'm saying that is because that's part of the reason why I'm on social media. Just to be a voice, and just to be a presence for my youth. and for those that are around, to be able to see another role model, to see someone else presenting or putting something up there that is not the normal funny dancing, just all about that. Add a little bit, talk about Jesus. I just posted it recently. Jesus is coming again. Jesus is coming soon, right? So again, it's just to encourage them to be like, okay, no, you don't have to do what everybody else is doing. As long, as you're a child of God, do as the word commands and teaches you. Right. So
what does your presence on social media look like? You made a video earlier.
Yeah.
What does it look like? Do you just do videos kind of regularly, or?
Yeah. It's not easy. To be on social media posting videos. It's not easy. I try to be there, to be a present, to do a little bit of here and there, to just encourage the body.
Sure.
So I usually post faith and family related kind of talk, because again, family is another big.
It's so important.
Very important.
Yeah.
Without family, look, God started with a family, and then look where we are.
Good observation.
Now, right? So it's and as we know it, the enemy does not like families together, or encouraging family doing things together. Is always if the enemy can come in and divide a family, it's just a matter of time until it tears the rest of the family values down, right? So I always try to encourage. I do a little bit of silly here and there too, but
of course,
just to be funny.
Playfulness is allowed.
It's all right.
That's right. That's right.
But that's my kind of thing. I'm like, okay, well, if the world is out there, or people promoting their thoughts and ideologies on social media, why can't Christians utilize it for the good and be a present? I've seen Christians in both camp. Some that are there to promote, someone like, there's too much evil going on, or so much garbage going on social media, so therefore I'm going to turn it off. For some people, maybe they need to do that because maybe they're being distracted, throwing them off. But it's also, like anything, social media is a good thing, can be used for good, right?
Yeah.
To be able to
Absolutely. Share. Social media is not the evil on its own,
it's not.
Though I think that the algorithm is dangerous in the sense of the way that it feeds you more of what you want. So you get trapped in that echo chamber so easily. But social media becomes something we need to educate and and teach disciplines around it.
Yes.
Like something I've been trying to work on, and I'm not super good at it, but keeping my phone out of sight when I'm meeting with someone. Right? Yes. Like when I get to meet with somebody, it's like stick the phone in the pocket or out of sight, and have a conversation with a human being. Yeah. So often we have our phone.
You've done a good job so far.
Well, I'm on camera. My phone's over there is the camera, so I have no choice. But like you sit down at a table to meet with someone, and you put your phone on the table.
Right.
And like everyone does it, so it's just accepted.
Yeah.
But then it dings, and you glance at it.
Yes.
And in that moment, connection is lost with the other person. And I do it. I'm guilty of this. I'm not saying I've got it figured out, but I do this, and I'm just like, every time it happens, as soon as I look to my phone, I immediately feel like I have abandoned the person at the table.
Right.
And I'm like, shoot.
Yes.
I missed it.
Yes.
I need to put this thing away because I want them to know that I'm here right now in this conversation. Yeah. And so I'm trying to get better at that kind of thing.
Definitely.
And I think those are practices and disciplines that we can bring into our youth's lives.
Definitely. Yeah. I think maybe in the past, maybe a few years ago, if somebody were to do that, a lot of people feel disrespected. You don't respect me, and all that. You're checking your phone. Am I not important? I'm supposed to be the most important. But I think because it's been normalized, people are like, oh yeah, it's normal. Yo, who is it? Is it your wife? Is it your friend? Like, it's almost like people are encouraging you. It's like, oh, is it important? Yeah. Kind of thing. But I agree with you. I think it's always important if you're sitting in a meeting with someone. Give them that time, the one-to-one. Yeah, your phone should at least be on silent and away, so that you don't get it.
Yeah, it's a hard thing, and you're right. It's so normal in our culture. So this isn't meant to be a judgment on anyone. Yeah. I'm just as guilty, right?
I do it too.
Totally, right? Like we all do, because it's become so much ingrained, and that's fine. But I've been trying recently just to start to bring that into some degree of control for myself, and then hopefully being able to bring that in for some of my youth or other people and start to encourage that.
Definitely.
Do you have a phone policy in your youth group?
I think I should put one down.
Yeah.
I don't have one now, but I constantly, at least a few times, can you please put your phone away?
Yeah.
Can you please? And once in a while, I think I've kind of made him like, okay, all the cell phone in this basket, and now just put them aside.
Right.
But just because, I mean, they can't focus, right? Because, I mean, I mean, most of them don't get a phone at school, right? So when they get their phone, when they're at home, I mean, they bring it to youth. Actually, some parents actually keep their phones home.
Oh, that's
because
great.
they know what's going to happen. They want them to focus. But other than that, I mean, some of them who bring it, sometimes I'm like, okay, can you put it away? Or sometimes I'm like, okay, I've given you enough chances to put it away, and I just kind of put them aside. Maybe I should work on that for sure.
I don't have one. To be clear, I'm not saying like you should have one. Hey, I was just curious.
I think it's a good idea with it. I mean, it's a great temptation for a lot of them. Some of them actually have their phones and they're fine. They're cool. They actually turn it off. Some of them just have them in their pockets and it works out. It's always the one person that just kind of ruins it for the rest of the.
Yeah. I had a youth who would be playing games on his phone all the time. And like didn't hide it at all, unless you called him on. Then he'd be like immediately like, "What? I wasn't." Like we could see it. You have your phone like out here. It's like I'm not on games. But yeah, I don't know. I've never put in a phone policy. I just don't really care.
Yeah.
I have this like attitude, and maybe this is a bad attitude. It's like the same thing as snack. I just don't care. It's like, but it's
you hear that? He doesn't care.
I don't care. I do youth ministry for the paycheck.
There you go. Because he makes tons of money.
Yeah. Anyways, that's not what it's about. No, I've never put in a phone policy. I've always kind of felt like I have a lot of something I think to say, something of value that I want them to hear.
Yeah.
But if they don't want to hear it, and if I can't grab their attention, so if I can't grab their attention, that's on me. And if they don't want to hear it, so they're intentionally, I'm not going to force them. So I don't know. I've never really implemented a phone policy. I do have volunteer leaders who will, like, if youth have their phone out and they're obviously gaming or texting or whatever, they'll kind of just whisper to them, "Hey, we're doing a message right now." And the youth, "Oh, right, of course." And then they'll put it away. They know, right? They know.
They know this.
They know they're being distracted. They know that they're even being disrespectful at times, if it is disrespectful. And they generally are good, but
I think it's disruptive only when now they're involved in their peers.
Right, as soon as it starts to involve other people, and I've had that too, and then I'll usually say something. Which, as soon as it becomes
typically,
a disruption.
I mean, because of they all desire to do what they're doing, it's very easy for them to just always just leaning in and trying to check it. I think that's when things kind of let's bring it back.
One of my favorite techniques. This is a weird because I've been trying to make these conversations just like asking questions and I shut up, but this has been fun. One of my favorite techniques though is when I see youth starting to like share their screens with each other and whatever, and maybe I'm teaching or something in that moment, is I'll just casually kind of still teaching, stand right in front of them and lock eyes and just keep teaching to the room.
Right.
But I'm focused in on them. And then there's this realization on their faces, like they'll kind of do the double check. They're like, "Oh," and then they'll put their phone away and then I'll wander back and do the rest of the room. I don't have any idea, honestly, how that's interpreted by them.
Yeah, that's funny.
I don't know if the group is like, it's so weird when Andrew does that. I don't know if the youth are like, that is the worst feeling in the world when Andrew stands there and stares at me while he talks because he knows I'm distracted.
Hey, if it's working.
But it seems to draw them back into the room for a few moments.
It's working. It's working. So keep doing.
It's one of those things, like you find out 10 years later that I like caused a deep trauma in someone's life. And I really hope that's not the case. I'm hoping all it is like, nah, he called me out with his eyes. And so.
I mean, sometimes, I've done it. I've called them out. I'm like, hey, do you want to share? Do you want to share with the rest of us what you're looking at? Like,
it's like, no. And then the phone goes away and you're like, victory. It's like, perfect.
Always works. Do you want to share with us? Do you want to? We can take a selfie and send it to your friends on Snapchat if you want.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, hanging out with the pastor. Shouldn't be on my phone. Feeling rebellious. So, might tweet later. So I don't know. Is that still on the internet?
I don't.
Where I live, we're like 10 years behind the trend, right? At least 10 years behind any trends. So like, I'll start hearing things that youth say, and I'll be like, I thought that was a meme a while ago. Or I thought that was something I heard in the city when I was, it's like, it's just catching on in my culture, in my community. Rural communities are just a little bit always a couple years behind the curve on the cultural trend.
Which is never a bad thing.
I think it's a wonderful thing.
Not everything they need to see, they need to hear, so I
think it's a wonderful thing. I really like it. And if I'm really attuned to what's going on in larger culture, I can be prepared for what's coming sometimes. What's coming up in what's going to be coming up in discussions. Man, Chris, this has been an awesome conversation. We kind of went off the rails here at the end in the best possible way, I think. Before we wrap up here, is there anything you wanted to discuss, bring up, ask about? I'm just going to give you a quick opportunity to just and you're welcome to just say, no, this is great. So your call. But was there anything that you were hoping we'd talk about that I didn't bring up?
I think the conversation we had, again, as I say, I'm an open book. I mean, this could be a part one of our many conversations.
I would love that.
I think one of the things that I want to share, the reason why when I joined the youth ministry, especially here in Abbotsford, because initially I was like, I don't even know why I'm here. I didn't think I would be here even long. Long. I mean, this year I'm like, I've been here for 3 years. It felt so fast. Right. And again, they say time flies when you're having fun. But besides that, I think one of the really what has kept me going is knowing and seeing the impact that my presence is having with the youth that I'm working with. I just love the idea of walking alongside of them. I mean, the whole idea, we chatted when we had coffees, the whole idea of discipling the young people, setting them up, knowing what they believe and why they believe what they believe. I find it's harder to teach an adult to come to terms of what they believe and why than to train up a young person in their faith and show them scripture, what the Bible says about their faith and why and the reasons behind it. Because again, we chatted and we know it, we see it all the time. I mean, we have to catch them while they're still young, especially it's still in high school under their parents' roof and they're still coming here. Because a lot of them, they actually face a hard time when they get to college. Because a lot of, usually, when they're still in high school, they still face some confrontation. People still question their faith, but they still have you.
Yeah, that's right.
And they come to youth, they'll bring those questions. Yes. But at times, again, if we fail to build those relationships with them while they're young, when they get to college, when they get to university, they don't have anyone to come to.
Well, they get thrown into a whole world. They're on their own. And that identity crisis stuff kicks right back in again. I need to find my people here. I need to find a way that I fit. And I'm unique.
Yeah. And if their faith is not strong, they don't have a foundation, then they're like, I don't even know what I believe. Why am I a Christian? Right? Maybe I should try something else. Maybe I should just join. I was actually talking to my wife the other day. We're talking about how a lot of people throw in the whole idea of, I'm an atheist. And a lot of them, if you were to stop and ask them, what does that mean? What brought you to that conclusion that you're an atheist? And a lot of them have no explanation. They say that they're an atheist just because they don't want to deal with the spiritual conversation, or what I'd like to call is they're just lazy in their thinking. Right, so I
don't disagree. There's an intellectual laziness to atheism.
Right, so I think personally, discipling young people, that's one of the ways that the church can continue to be strong. I mean, if we're not discipling and teaching the young ones today, who's going to be in the church in the next few years? Right, so if I just find that to be fascinating. That whole idea, I always like the idea is like teach them, train them, right, while they're watching you, and then put them to the task, put them to work. While you're watching them, almost like supervising them, and then step back and give them responsibility. I believe that's one way of ensuring that the church will continue. Because the same people, the same youth that you have now, if you train them, they buy into the vision of the church. They're going to be the next volunteers in the youth when I'm not here. Totally. I mean, like, to be afraid, I don't know how long I will be here. I don't know where God might be calling you. So long as God
keeps you here until he calls you somewhere else.
So, I mean, so my job, as long as I'm here, is to make sure that those faithful, those people, those youth, those young people that God had placed in my life, I need to be faithful enough to train them, to pour into them so that they can grow up and develop. And so
it's amazing.
That's just my my heart for the young
Amazing.
people, is to see them on fire for Jesus. That's
cool.
That's all that I want to see.
Yeah.
And that makes me glad again.
That's good.
So.
Chris, I've loved our conversations.
Yeah.
I loved our coffee the other day. I love your heart for youth and for discipleship. Thanks so much for taking time to meet with me.
You.
And even recording.
Yeah.
And maybe just a part one. Maybe there's a chance for us to do this again. I find myself in Abbotsford fairly often.
Yeah.
It's many of my friends live here.
Yeah.
And it's where I went to school and college. Yeah. And so, I find myself here visiting often. Yeah. So we'll have to connect again.
Yeah,
and I'm really looking forward to it.
Definitely.
Thanks so much, Chris.
Reach out. Thank you.
Oh, man, it's been so good.
Yeah.
All right.
It's good to see you, man.